Hi and welcome back to my workshop. I'm Tony, and if you follow me you know we've just started or getting started on my new amazing project from Armortek. This time it is the Jagdpanther G2 full 1:6 scale metal kit, and in my last video we unboxed it all and I went through as many of the components as I possibly could and unveiled all these amazing parts that Armortek have produced. I now know what I'm going to be doing. The first session is going to be the front Glacis plate and the rear main plate, and I've gone ahead for the main Glacis plate. I've found all the parts I need, a few fixings, not many. It's a very simple start, a nice easy introduction to this build. And one thing I will say, and it's brilliant because this is updated since my last purchase from Armortek. The parts list is brilliant because now it very quickly and easily identifies which bag out of the three main parts bags you should be looking for to find these components. That's something that I hadn't found in the previous tanks that I've built. So that's a massive help, and it really did help. Early days, but anyway, what I'm going to do now is go through what I've got everything ready. I've got my barrier cream I've put on my hands already. I use this to just help me when it comes to cleaning my hands afterwards, and it's because you're going to be handling a lot of metal components and you'll be picking up sort of deposits and grease and everything else. So it's really good advice to put some barrier cream on your hands. I've got my fixings, got my parts, got my tools, I've got my thread locker, I've got my glues, got my instructions, I've got my reading glasses. The only thing I've got to do now is reposition the camera and we'll get cracking. Okay, so these three parts here come in its own bag, and these were found in bag one. I'm not going to go into this all the time, but it's really clearly labelled in this. And again, I've said it already, but this is brilliant Armortek, so thank you. What a difference. It used to be a real challenge to find all these parts, and I used to say that it was a sick game that Armortek used to play. But anyway, it's actually really easy now, so massive thank you for that. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up. As you can see, there's some deposits left on here. I'm going to clean this up, because this ball needs to run beautifully and freely in here. This is obviously the machine gun. So just want to make sure that's all nicely cleaned up. A lot of people, when they build these, or some builders when they build these, they prime and paint all the parts. I don't do that. I wait until everything's assembled to a certain stage and then I prime and paint them. So I'll do the wheels separately, and I'll do the base of the hull separately, and so on. So first things first, we need to glue this machine gun. Look at that, beautifully machined machine gun barrel, beautiful. This needs to go in here, and it's a little bit tight, so I'm going to just deburr the edge of, gently deburr the edge of that. My little deburring tool. Oh, that got it, beautiful now. So now we just need to glue that in. No residue left in there, so that's okay. I'm just going to use super glue on this. This should be fine for this particular. Slide that in. Turn it round so it spreads the glue. So that's that. Now this will sit inside this little collar, and then when we're ready, the servo will be attached to the back of this, which will actually move the gun, move the machine gun. So that's the general idea. Now this will go through the back of this, like so. And this collar goes on there to secure that in place, and then that allows that to rotate. Sorry, that allows that to move. So let's do that first. I mean, this final position of this can be sorted out later on, but let's just pop it in for now. So it should be like that. Then this collar goes on into position like that, and there's a couple of 16mm cap fixings that go in the back. I'm not using thread locker on this because it's going into aluminium and it really does bite well. I'm not tightening that up too tight. And these are M3 16mm cap fixings. Always keep them quite loose until you're happy. So that's it. Obviously it's quite loose and slack until the servo is attached to it. Now there is these ridges around this machine gun outlet. Now I know some builders would want to try and machine all that off, but I'm not that bothered about it, because I think by the time we build up primer and paint on this, I think you'll probably won't even notice that. But it's just where the machine has gone through and just carved out this piece out of this solid block. So that's that. We'll just tighten these up. And that's moving beautifully, as it should. Now that then sits inside the glacis plate, like so. Couldn't be easier at the moment anyway. And then we're just going to flip this over. And we just need to line up the holes. Just spin that round ever so, just a tiny amount. Not quite aligned yet. Might have to pop that out. That's better. Using the weight of the plate just to hold that down. And these are, what are these? These are 12mm cap fixings that hold it in place. We'll go around and tighten all these up in a moment. Just need a little bit of flexibility just so we can connect all the fixings. And before you know it, this first stage is complete. As I said, nice, easy, gentle start, entry into the build. It's definitely going to get more intense as we go forward. I'm now going to go around and tighten these up. I'm quite happy with the location of that. Go around and finally tighten all these up. The temptation is to use thread locker on this, but I don't think we're going to need it because the fixing does bite really well into the aluminium. And that's the first stage complete. So onto the rear plate. Now, as you can see, I've got all these little bags of parts. Now, some bags we're going to need all the parts, some bags we're going to need some of the parts. For an example, this one here, in this little bag here, we only need these two little starter posts in here to complete the rear plate. And so what I do, this is how I deal with it. Now this is out of bag 2, and again, brilliantly found. I mean, it's just saved so much time. I'm going to bang on about it because it's just what a time saver. If you've ever built one of these Armortek kits, and prior to Armortek doing this sort of this new updated list, it was always a challenge to. It was kind of a hunt to find the parts, because you'd go through all the bags and blah blah blah, and there was a sort of a packing list, but nowhere near as good as this. Anyway, that's that. Now I've taken the only two pieces I want out of there, and what I tend to do is I just reseal that bag. I don't want anything coming out because we're not going to need some of the parts out of that bag until much later in the build. I'll just pop those into my magnetic tray. So I'll make just there. And then once you've taken the parts out that you want, you can pop them back into the main bag, and you know that they're safely positioned in there. Same thing here, we've got some toe lugs. All I need for this stage of the build is these little toe lugs here. Don't think I need anything else out of that bag just yet. So again, I'm just going to reseal the bag. I'm only using a bit of masking tape. And that's that bag resealed, and again I'm going to pop that back in bag 2 where it belongs. I think everything else is required. Don't know about these 2 caps. I think everything else is required. So I think probably not actually. See this one here. We just need the bin lids off of that. Just notice these 2 beautiful little brass hinges. Look at those. Not required for this stage of the build. This looks like the bin lids. So I'm going to pop those beautiful little brass hinges, very delicate, back into that bag. And then as before, just seal that bag up. This is how I do it. I mean, if you've got the space and you've got loads of trays and everything else, I guess you could split the parts out. If you like, debag the bags and then put them into the individual sort of component sections, if you like. I'm pretty happy with all of that. That can all go off into the bin. And then the only other thing is for the little hinges which are in this bag here. This time round, instead of using a steel pin, looks like they've supplied us with some aluminium rod, which is this little stack of rods here, and that's in this bag here with these 2 tools here. So I'm just going to reseal that bag. We're not going to need those until much later because I'm going to be painting those, detailing them towards the end of the build. I'm just going to pop that back over there. Then that will go back underneath my bench where all the other tools are. So I think that's everything we're going to need. I've already recovered these little hatches from bag 1. The only thing to note on here, the bottom edge of this is quite rough. So I've just used sandpaper just to take the sharp edge off of that, because when it's moving, because these are, you will need to move, access these. So what you don't want to do is it damaging your paint when it's all painted. So they're all been just sort of sanded over just to make sure I get rid of any abrasive or sharp edges. So that's all that. I think now I'm just going to go off now and hunt for, well, account for all my little fasteners and fixings, and we can get cracking. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is work up the starter cover, giving this a bit of a clean and just wiping off any residue, because once the nuts are in place it'd be difficult to get to, and I just want to do this thinking way ahead, but when it gets to priming and painting I want the paint to stick and adhere correctly. So that's that. First things first, so the main starter handle hole is on the bottom, and you've got these 2 toe lugs which should be pointing upwards, and they're fixed. Let me just double check what they're secured with. M310 cap. So I have got those ready. Put the first one in. I'm going to fix that in from behind, and we'll just going to put a tiny little bit of thread locker on this, holding that. This is obviously the front with the recesses in. Just getting a couple of turns on that. Nice and tight. Turns out, just looking in my fastener tray, I've put that upside down. Quality. There you go, talking to the camera. Also got to go and find another 2 10mm caps. That's not a problem, I can see them from where I am. So that should be pointing upwards. No harm done. feel that by hand and then tighten it up. Just need another couple of 10mm caps. And the same again, just a tiny little bit of thread locker on those. Put one in first, I think. Hold that in place. Just wind that in. Line up the hole. Next thing we're going to do is one of the little hatches. So that's that. So we'll do this little hatch next. It's one of the smaller ones. And initially you put this one in, just make sure it does. Will it rotate? Not really. So I'm not sure how that's supposed to work. I mean, you don't actually need to start handle on, so I don't think we need to worry about articulating this. I think the only ones we need to worry about is the idler adjusting arms. Right, now what do we need for this? We're going to need an M312 cap, which are these longer ones. One goes in from the underside of that, and we have a reciprocating nut. I'm just going to put a dab of thread locker on that. Just winding that on by hand to start with. Do the same on the back of that. So this is really just for detailing purposes. It's not real any function in it as such. So this can be fixed into place and not worry about, because it will it's all going to be painted, and you don't need to, as far as I'm aware, you don't need to unwind it. So I'm happy to put the thread locker on that now. So that's that one. The only other thing we need to put on are these two little studs here and here. They should just, I'm just going to test them first. They should just wind in at a bit of an angle, and they do. So I'm going to put a little bit of thread locker on that as well. Just winding them in by hand, as tight as possible. It's beautifully engineered, so so far no issues. I know when I was doing my M26, I had to tap out a couple of the holes. So that's pretty much complete, and then that's then going to be positioned onto the rear plate like so. So this is secured to the main rear plate with 12mm cap fixings. I'm just going to put, initially just going to put one in and hold that in place. A little bit of thread locker on that and wipe off the excess. Just hold that nut. Keep it fairly loose for now. Then I'm going to go diagonally opposite. Drop the fixing through like that. Okay, just a bit of thread locker. Not tightening any of these up just yet. repeat that. This time I'm going to go, actually what I'll do, put the thread locker on first. And go directly opposite. Hold those two fixings in place. Just using my hand at the back just to hold them in place. Just wind those on initially just with your hand or using your fingers. Two more. Again, just keeping it quite loose for now. Once we've got them all on, we can go around and tighten them all up. Got plenty of time with the thread locker. It's not going to take any effect while we're doing this. And the last two. Again, just hold those. And once these are on, we can go around and tighten them all up. Now, I'm going to hold these nuts from the front and tighten from behind. You only need to hold them with your finger. It's amazing as soon as you get into one of these builds, you just want to keep going. But I've got to, I do manage my time when I'm building these, because you have other requirements in life, of course. I'm just going to go around and wipe off any excess thread locker, and that's it. That's the starter plate complete. Now we're going to go on and install the main exhaust boxes. There's no particular order you need to do these in. This is the order that I've decided to work in. So you're going to need these two exhaust boxes, and then in here you have two exhaust collars. So I'm just going to take out, I think all I need out of this bag are these little collars and these 4 little metal tubes, and these I think are there to support the hooks, the tow hooks. I'm just looking at what these could be. Exhaust collar times 2. I'll leave them in the bag for now. So I'll just pop these out of the way for now. Don't want them rolling off the bench. And these little collars just slide in like that. I believe they just get glued into place. Both those, one either side. And then we have these two copper, I'll do it with my knife is there. These two copper elbows. I'm not going to glue these just yet. So I think the idea is that that goes in there. This somehow goes in there. Is that because there's a sleeve? Let's have a look. Yes, let's have a look. There's two little white plastic inner sleeves. I think that's their role in this build. I'll just test that, make sure that is the case. So that would go in there like that, and your copper elbow will go over the top like that. So that's it. So So I think we'll just dry fit these for now. Pop that in there. Squeeze that down in there. Like that. And I think once we've got the other part on, we can then Loctite these into position. So that's the essence of that. Let's make sure that's down and flush. So these just need, I'm just going to give these a bit of a clean up now, because for the same reason, I don't want to forget, and then obviously I will be giving the whole thing a clean before I paint it, but while you've got these things to hand, you might as well get them cleaned, just wiping any residue off. Before I do anything with these, I'm going to bolt these onto the rear plate into the position that they go, which is here, and these holes then will eventually be where the exhaust system, and we'll get some smoke piped through. Looking amazing as always on these. Now we've got, just checking the fittings that we're going to have to use, and these are M316 cap fittings. So as before, we'll pass them through the back of the hole, the plate. Just going to put a bit of Loctite thread locker on that one. Spin a nut loosely onto that. And go the diagonally opposite almost. Forgot to put the thread locker on that. Seems to be very long, these fixings, for what really is it really necessary for them to be that long? I don't know, but if I might decide to grind those off later on in the build. Time to put a couple through. Just hold those in place. Awkward as always when the camera's on. That nut doesn't want to behave itself. Try it on that fixing. Yeah, that's it. Nope. Sometimes just pick another nut. There you go. Strange, isn't it? So I'll carry on. I'll tighten these up. Put the last fixing in, put the other one in, and then I'll be back to camera. That's the two exhaust boxes fixed on now. Just going to go around and put all these clips on. These are all secured by M3 button head fixings. Now you need to make sure that you you align these. So there's two here, which will probably be for to hold one of the starting handles. Make sure you put them in the right orientation. That just goes through, and as before, just going to hold that, which all goes off onto the floor. Spin that round. Little dab of thread locker on there. And again, all these things can go on at this stage, because I'm just going to bring that round, because we're not these are all going to be painted over, so it's not a problem. Just want to get the orientation of that right. Use the right tool for it. Because of the weight it's sitting on, you don't have to hold the back of the nut. Just going to get that aligned so it's nice and tight, and it's roughly in line where it wants to be, I think. Just crank that round. That's fine. Another one. Yeah, so these can go on now because they're going to be painted as part of the overall paint scheme. Just spin that round, pop a nut onto that. And again, just flip that back over. And again, because of the weight, it should that one isn't classic, it's alright, just hold it from the back and just align that just before we tighten it up. There's those two clips on, and I think there's another two the other side. There is. Well, where do they go? This is where you just need to be careful you put them in the right holes. So we've got, I'd say it's there, that's where it's going, this one, and it's in that orientation. This time I'm going to hold that like that. Spin that nut on. And that's that one. Now there's another one, because this would be for the L shape starter handle, and that suggests that it goes there and is positioned like so. So I'm a little bit concerned that I end up interfering with the access to the idler and track tensioner, but we'll put it in and see how we get on. Just hold that again while I tighten that up. Position it in its right orientation, which is pointing down, this one. That makes sense because it is for the L shape starter handle. So that's that. That's those four in. Then we've got, I think for the cutters, for the wire cutters, there's a bracket that goes on. Let's see where that goes. That goes, looks like it goes there. And then this one goes down the bottom, but they ask you to put a double nut on this. So this one is a M3 16mm fitting. I'm going to pass that through the back of the plate. Going to wind a nut on. Tighten it up from underneath. Slide that over the top, and that allows your cutters to be positioned inside that. Now I'm not going to thread lock this nut into place because I might have to take these off to get the cutters installed, so I'm just going to wind that on for now. fairly tight, just hand tight. That'll do. And then the last one, that's fixed by, what is that fixed with? M3. Okay, so it's another M3, one of these, and that just goes through there, and same deal, just put a thread locker on that, nut on that, we've got one of these nuts that just doesn't want to behave. Find another nut. There you go. Always works that. Don't know what it is. Could be placebo, don't know. So just going to wind that, turn that round, get the right tool. And before we tighten it up completely, that's it. That's ready for its wire cutters. Quite sharp that actually, so I might actually file that down a little bit. That's very sharp. Anyway, what's the next thing? It's these cover plates, so we'll get on to do that, but I might just get my file and file that down. So I'll take these sharp edges off. That's better. Doesn't feel like you're going to impale yourself on it then. That's much better. Just a little bit more on this side. Done. Happier with that. Right, so we now got these little access hatches. Now one of these is going to be access to the idler tensioner, or the track tensioner, so we need this to be loose. So I will use the, I'm just checking what size. It's an M16 cap, yeah, so I will use thread locker on this side, but I'll not use thread locker on this side because this needs to be dropped out so you can get in and tension up the access to track tensioner. So let's do that. So 16 M3 16mm cap fixing through the back of that. Oops, classic. Position that over that so it operates like that. Wind a nut on. Just gonna tighten that up. Not too tight. To slacken it off. Sorry, I know it's out of camera. We want this to be fairly loose, but that's probably too loose. Just half a turn, I think. A bit more. That's it. It's about the right sort of, about the right tension you want that to be, so you can get in and do that. Actually, I'm thinking about it. I'm going to slacken it off a tad more because it's going to be paint on there. And then with this one, I'm just going to pass that through. And also when I'm painting this, I'll be able to move this out of the way to paint it. So I'm not going to put any thread locker on this one. Just going to wind that on. So then I can undo that and drop it out of the way to paint it. So that's that. I don't think this one needs to be removed. I mean, I don't know how you'd even get, what's the point of that? Look, that sort of interferes with that. So again, I think this is just more for decorative purposes. Don't have to design flaw in the German engineering, or it doesn't really matter, because it's it is, I think, it's just for detailing purposes. So I'm fairly confident we can lock this one into place. There's the nut. Just need a couple of more nuts. No matter how many I counted, I still didn't get it right. You'll find that when you if you are building one of these. So I will just put a little bit of thread locker on this, and if I find I need to get these out, and I find that ahead of painting it, don't panic about the thread lock. I am using Extreme, the red one, but it's all metal, so if you really need to, you can put some heat to it, put a heat gun on it, softens up the thread locker, and then you can remove the fixing without damaging it. So now we've got one more large access one here. Again, this will be for the track tensioner, so that needs to be sort of fairly loose. So I'm going to thread lock this side. Pop this so it rotates this way. I think that's about right, the right sort of tension. That thread locker will now do its job. Lock that nut on. Again, I'm not going to thread lock this, I'm just going to wind the nut onto it. I'll just tighten it up from behind. So I know that there's no thread locker on these. And then we have one small one which goes in this position here. And these are fixed with an M312 cap. So from behind, nut onto that. One more fixing through there. Not sure about that actually. I might just thread lock that one and just wind the nut onto this, because I don't know, something tells me we may need to remove this, so I won't. We can always come back and revisit that. Just tighten these up. And that's all those access hatches done. Right, moving on now to the exhaust brackets and the jack mounts. So there's 5 of these. No, 4. And a couple of blocks, and then we have this lovely little reflector. Look at that. Can you see that? It's obviously been resin filled. So what I might do is, once I've got it on here, I might just put a bit of masking tape around that, so I don't forget when it comes to painting, because I'd like to see that and it's red afterwards. There's no hole in the back, so it doesn't suggest it's going to be illuminated, so it just looks like it's a reflector. So nice little touch, that Armortek. Right. So what do we need here? We need the M310 butts again. Microphone. So the exhaust bracket goes in this orientation, and there's 2 fixings that go behind that, so I'm just going to put a little bit of thread locker on that. Okay, holes might need opening up. Let's have a look. Let's say that they are M3, so these holes are quite tight, so I'm just going to go and open these up. I'll probably do the same to all of them. They all look a little bit tight and they all require M3, so I'm just going to get my drill. I'm just going to open these holes up and I'll be back. Okay, just put those in my vise and run a little bit, I think it was a 2mm drill through it, and that's opened the holes up just enough for what we need. Let's pop these down there because we'll need those later. So that's the exhaust bracket. One goes there and one obviously goes there, and then the jack supports go the opposite way. I just realised I'm probably going to have to drill these little plates out as well. Forgot to do that, but anyway, let's get these in. So we'll go again. A bit of thread locker on that. Pop those through. Got me two already. Going to support that from this side. Oh, forgot my little reflector. And then just wind on the nuts. You can see at the back here now it's looking very busy with all the fixings. And this time I'm going to use my socket to tighten that up. We'll do the same again. It's starting to look busy, isn't it, this side as well? I just love the detailing on this. There's so much detail and so many parts to it. It's going to look incredible when it's painted. So, get those on. Same again, just hold those from behind. Spin the nut on. Whoops. And as I said, I'm not going to build or make the jack just yet. Too early for that. I normally do a separate build session where I assemble all the armor packs parts, clean them up and paint them, distress them, weather them, and that's one of the sort of final episodes. So that's the two exhaust mounts, and they will, I'm guessing, will want to, they'll be supporting this. Just trying to see if there'll be a hole somewhere, or a method of, oh there is, a little hole in the bag. Through the bag here I can see a little hole there, so that could be awkward. Anyway, we'll work that out in a moment. We'll carry on. In fact, what I'm going to do before I forget is I'm going to just go and put these in my vise and drill these out and make the holes slightly bigger on these as well. Okay, no, my bad. You don't need to do that because these are for the smaller M2.5 holes for these little fixings here. But I'm thinking how, so obviously that goes on there. I'm not doing the jack yet, and that goes on there and secures that into place. And then to get this off, to get to the jack, you're going to have to get behind here, which is a bit awkward, but it can be done. So I'm thinking what I might do is I'm going to fix one side. So I'll bring this up to the camera a little bit. Fix one side, but then I'm going to use my drill and cut a slot in that side so I can actually use it to hook into place and then tighten up. I think that will be better. Yeah, so I'm going to do that. So I'm going to put this in my vise. I'm going to cut, use my drill just to open that up with a slot one side, and then I'll be back. I'll do it to both and I'll be back. Right, so I've done that. I've got the These are now slotted, just using my drill to create a little slot. And I've got some thread locker on here, so the nut's locked into place and it's loose enough for what I want. Now I can position that where I want it, using now it's the M3 button fixing that goes through the back. Losing my nuts. Oops, scratch that. Anyway, that goes on there. Put the M3 nut on. Hopefully it goes on without too many issues. Do you know what? I forgot to put a bit of thread locker on that. Bit over zestful with the thread locker, but I'll wipe that off. This is awkward. I think what I'll probably do is do it from the back. Just hold the nut there. There we go. That's better, I can feel it now. Just line that up. Excuse me. See if I can get that to that's it. Now when I put the 2.5mm on the back of that, and then put the nut on that, I can just use that to snap it into position. Just wind that in a bit more. That's perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. You don't have to do that, of course. It's just you can do it the way it says on the in the instructions. But I just think it'd be a lot easier when I come to install the jack after it's painted. I don't have to just tighten that up a little bit more. That's about right. Perfect. So we'll just do exactly the same thing again. M3 fixing from the back. I might nut on the front. That's awkward, sorry. Entertain yourselves at home, please, while I struggle with this. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to turn the camera off and you watch, it'll go straight in. As suspected, no problem at all with the camera off. So just do exactly the same thing again. Pop that through that. Get the nut on the end of that. Of course the thread locker will do its job and keep the nut in place, so it won't lose it, but I don't want to tighten it up because I need that bit of space just to be able to pass that bracket through it. Another half turn and that's it, done. So that's the jack support, but the jack's not going to go in there just yet, as I said. Right, the next thing we're going to do is start looking at finishing off the exhaust parts here. So I'll get this on bagged, and we'll see how that goes. Then we'll go on and start looking at the equipment bins. Okay, so I've got all my parts ready. There's a lot of residue on these parts here, so I'm going to, while it's not installed, I'm going to clean all this off. You should want a good bond with the glue, as well as the paint, of course. Just cleaning these up. Just use one of my tools just to get into the nitty gritty in the corners and all that. Now this is going to be awkward. It could be because of the sequence I've chose to do all this, but there isn't really any clear sequence in the instructions. It just shows you everything on the back plate and all the bits that you're going to need to install and all the fixings, which, you know, I think that's all you need. But I've just had a little bit of a play around with this, and I think this is going to be jolly awkward. Just clean this collar up as well. All this has to be glued together, so you want a really good clean surface to surface contact. And as I said, when it comes to painting, you want the paint to adhere to the metal. I think that's all we need to do. And then we'll start gluing all these components together, and because we put these on, it's awkward. But if I didn't put these on now, once it's all on, I don't know how you'd get it's pretty awkward to get into the back of these. But anyway, we'll see how we get on. If I have to undo it, I have to undo it. Right, so we have the main exhaust tube. Let me just give that a wipe round as well. Two of those. The lower section of it will come here, so the holes at the, not at the top, so this hole here should be on the lower part. First things first, we need to glue these two sleeves into position here. So I'm going to use some of the Loctite 638 I should say on that. Slide that into position. Where's the other one? There we go. Take that apart. We're going to have to do it like this because it just doesn't physically fit in. So you've got to do it piecemeal. Slide that into that. Now we're going to put these little plastic sleeves in. Take that one out of that. It's stuck fast in there, but I'll pull that out. That does not want to come out of there. Right. That one in. Push that down into place. I've retrieved these two little, they look like 3D printed, these little sort of flame guards. Mustn't forget they've got to go in. Now we can glue the copper in. So we're just going to put some glue on the inside of that. Pop that over the top of that white sleeve. Same again. Push that down into place, and that's it there. Obviously that glue, when it goes off, will hold that in place. So that's those. Next thing we're going to do is what are we going to do? We're going to find our little M3 8mm butt fixing fastener and pop that through the back of that. Position this, I'm going to have to lift this up. Sorry, I'm doing this so I can see it. Right, so then that's kind of in place. Now I'm going to use my finger, put the nut on my finger, and then hope I can get it. There we go. And then just winding that in. It's all a bit loose until the glue goes off. But that's the general idea. Just going to try and get a couple of turns on that nut. Let's put some thread locker on that. Use my long nose pliers perhaps. I know you can't see this, but I am managing to turn it. So that's it there. I'll go on and do the other one off camera, and then we'll come back and we'll finish off all the other details on this. So that's them both done. Next thing we do, there's a disc that goes on the bottom of this. The glue's still going off on that, so it will take a bit of time. I'm actually going to use super glue for this one, so I'm going to just put that in and then use that to spread that around, and then put the disc in at the bottom. Just pop in, and it does. Lovely. Same again. I'm just using the nozzle to spread that around. Not sure there's a lot. Yeah, missed a bit. Pop that in there now. Lovely, that's gone in nice. Then the next thing we need is this top collar, which literally just glues into place in here. So let's get some, I'll use the the 638 on this, because it needs to be a little bit flexible before it goes off. Just push that into place like that. Wipe all the excess off. Spin that around so get a good contact with the glue. Then that's it, that's that bit done. And the only thing left to do as far as the exhausts are concerned is just to glue these very fragile 3D printed flame guards in. Don't want to force them in. I'm just going to push that in. Like that. And then I'm just going to put some super glue, just a couple of dabs. And that'll hold that in place. Didn't want to glue it before I did that in case the glue went off too quick and ended up pushing it too hard, so that's going to go on this side. Very fragile, so be very gentle and very careful when you push these into place. Oops, that 638 glue does take a while to go off. Anyway, that's that. Again, just a couple of dabs of super glue. And that is that. So I've got just got to put the reflector on now, and then we'll go on and talk about the equipment bins. I almost forgot about these, the tow hook retainers. They all need, there's 4 of them to go, 2 here and 2 here. I've already put the reflector on, and you can see I've just put a bit of masking tape around that. I'm doing it now so I don't forget. So these just pass through underneath that, and then we're just going to use that to hold that into position. And just spin a nut on the back of that. Bit of thread locker. I know you can't see it, but I think you get the general principle. That's that. One more to go on. Looks like there's a split pin that goes in here to secure the tow hook. Little hole through that tube. I won't do the other 2 on camera. I'll do those 2 off camera because I'm keen to get on with the equipment bin, because there's something we need to be mindful when we're doing that. So I'll do the other 2 of these off camera, and then I'll come back and talk about 2 equipment bins. Okay, so part of the equipment bins we need to make up 4 of these little hinges. I've already done one, and I'm going to talk you through how we do that. So Armortek supply you a pack of aluminium rods like this. I've already got one out. Now this can be a little bit tricky, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the 2 parts like that, offer them together, Now I have the perfect tool here. It's got a long narrow shaft and a spike on the end. I'm just going to run that through just to get rid of any manufacturing shards. Then I'm going to pass the rod through. You can just see that now. You can see that. I'm going to bring it back to this point here, and then I'm just going to put some super glue just on this end here, and that's just to stop this from winding itself out. Bit zealous with the super glue, but that'll be fine because it's only on one end. Now we've got to trim this wire. Now I've got the perfect tools here. These are what I use to separate my plastic parts off a parts tree, and they've got it's a flush cut. So just going to put that as tight as possible against that. I'm going to hold that because the energy involved in, sorry, maybe that will want to bounce off. So, and that's your hinge. So we just got to make another 2 of those. Then these simply just glue to the lid like so. So I'll make the other 2 off camera, and then we'll be back to talk about the equipment bins. Alright, so now we start looking at these storage bins, however you want to call them. Now, the point I made in the past about reading through the instructions all the way through comes poignant at this moment, and I'll explain why. Because obviously it suggests that these should go on now. However, I'll get them out. Wow, first time I've seen these. Look at that. Nice, very nice. So we'll get rid of that. If you can imagine, now let's just get this the right way round. What is the right way round? That one. I'll go there. Yeah. So that one goes there, and obviously that one goes over that side. Looking very smart. However, if we put these on now, and it does say this later on in the instructions, but initially you think I can get these on now. These 2 fixing points here are to fix the plates together to form the main hull. If this goes on now, you're not going to get to them. So I'm not going to bolt these on just yet, but I'll tell you what we will do. You just see a bit of a bend in that. No problem, just form that back into shape. We're going to get the lids glued on, and then we can just put these to one side, and once everything's on here we can then go and put these on. So that's what we'll do. First thing I need to do is get my cleaning wipes, because all it asks you to do on this is just to glue these, but obviously you must make sure that the surface is clean from any grease. It's already started to oxidize, look. Just let that dry. Actually do the other one now as well, might as well. Which one I did. I'll do them both again just to be on the safe side. Now, what glue to use? That's the question. I'm tempted to use my B7000. So I want this to be sort of fairly rapid, but at the same time I want it to allow me to, the the luxury of being able to move it around a bit. So I'm going to let these dry off, and then I'll have made a decision by then, and I'll come back to camera and let you know. Still deliberating over what glue to use, but I've just set the first of the bins up on this flexible vise here. One of the guys that follows my channel recommended this, and do you know what? It's a godsend. It's absolutely brilliant piece of little kit, lovely piece of kit. So thank you for that. You know who you are. So I'm going to use this just to support this while I position the lid. Then we've got the two hinges, and they'll be positioned and glued. Surprised they're glued. Just normally you'd expect them to have fixings in them, but that's it there. That's effectively how that's going to look, as long as we can get, you know, this to open. So we need a bit of flexibility on it. So what to do? I think I'm going to glue them at the same time. I think that's probably the best bet. So I am going to use the Loctite 638, although it does take a long time to cure. But we'll put these on and see how we get on. So I'm just going to apply the glue to that face and that face, and then I'm not going to measure these. I don't think you need to. Do the same to that. As long as they look equal, I'm going to push them to the edge a little bit more actually. Push them to that kind of position. Just doing this by eye. Now, just need to wait for that to go off. And we'll do the other one. Okay, so just clamp the other one into place. I'm not having to clamp it too hard, it's only just because of the angular surface, I can't set it flat on my bench. Hence the reason I'm doing this. We'll do the same thing again. Using the Loctite 638. Sliding that into position, and the final hinge. I've really enjoyed the first couple of stages of this build. I'm just so happy to be back building Armortek tanks. I hope you've enjoyed this as well, and not too tedious. I am trying to film a lot because the feedback I get, well, it's mixed really, but pretty much very positive all the time. The feedback I tend to get, the most of, is that you guys enjoy me talking through every part of the build. I do skip certain parts, but I really think it's important to show you every aspect of the build. Where we've got repetitive parts, of course, that's yeah, there's no point of filming all of that. So what I'm going to do now is allow that to dry. I'm quite happy with the positioning of those. Maybe that one just needs to come in a little bit, and that needs to come out a bit. We'll let these dry, and then I think we're pretty much done for today. I'll do my sign off to camera. Well, that's it for today's first building session of my Jagdpanther, and I have enjoyed every single moment of it. And I really hope if you've joined me today, you've enjoyed it as well. So just to recap, oh my God, they've got the big old Glacis front plate here, which has got some girth to it and some weight to it. We put the machine gun mount on it, and then we did all the work on the rear plate, and there's a lot of detailing on that, as you can see. The only thing we didn't do is put the stowage bins on, for the reasons I explained, that if we put this on now we won't be able to bolt all this together in the next step. And talking of the next step, it will be about starting the lower hull section build. So it'll be, we're getting on to this very, very quickly. And again, when you read through this instruction book, you must make, there are things in here you need to be aware of. I'll just try and show you. So in the next stage of this, we've got, it tells you to put the Glacis plate on the front here. It also puts the motor mounts on. However, when you read through the instructions, a little bit later on, it talks about the torsion bars should go in before the Glacis plate, and I get that. And also the torsion bars go in before you put the drive motor mount on. So, because if you can imagine, there's a plan of this here. If you can imagine, you've got to try and get to all of these fixing points, and if you've got that big Glacis plate covering that, really difficult to do so. So that's why it's really worthwhile reading all the instructions all the way through before you even start, and then go through again and then step by step. So that's the plan for the next build session, is to start the lower hull section and get as far as I can, and may even start putting on the torsion bar system so that we can get on and finish off the entire hull. So thank you for joining me today. If you've liked this video, give me a thumbs up. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe, and welcome, of course. Please subscribe, because we've only just started this incredible build. And I'll sign off by saying, I'm Tony, I love building these kits. Thanks for joining me today, and I look forward to our next building session. See you soon.